Hello, students. We will be doing a critical summary of the story A Rose for Emily, written by William Faulkner. William Faulkner is one of the most remarkable of American novelists, and he was awarded Nobel Prize for Literature in 1947. He is a first-rate short story writer also, and this particular story is very famous. A Rose for Emily was published in a national magazine. The title of the magazine is Portrait of a Tragic Woman, in which Faulkner contrasted the past with the present era. The author in the present story reconstructs an old world culture at once comic and pathetic, and in the character of Emily, he represents a set of values which, though outdated, carry within them a faint but undying flavor of permanence. The protagonist of the story is Miss Emily, around whom the whole story moves. She is a fallen monument, as well as a tradition, a duty, and a care, a sort of hereditary obligation upon the town, Jefferson. She was the only child of Mr. Grierson, who lived in a big old house now surrounded with garages and cotton gins and gasoline pumps. Miss Emily had to lead her life unmarried because her father did not consider any match fit for her. The people of the town believed that the Griersons held themselves a little too high. So, when she got to be 30 and still single, they were not pleased exactly, but vindicated. However, Mr. Grierson died when she was 30 years old, and it was considered in the town that he had left nothing for her but the house. When the town people came to offer condolences, Miss Emily's reaction was very strange. She would not let them in and flatly refused of her father's death. The author writes, I read from the story, Miss Emily met them at the door, dressed as usual and with no trace of grief on her face. She told them that her father was not dead. However, on the insistence of the city authorities, church, and other people, Miss Emily was made to perform the burial of her father after 3 days. Her character is portrayed in such a mist of mystery and reverence that she is at once repulsive and curious. That she would not care for law. She refused to pay any taxes to the corporation, as he said that Colonel Sartoris had exempted her from any tax, and she would not recognize any other authority. Funny thing was that Colonel Sartoris had died 10 years ago. The officers could not make her realize the thing and returned in vain. She lived alone in the house except a Negro male servant who did all her shopping. She would never come out. After her father's death, she was sick for a long time. When she recovered, she was seen with her hair cut short, making her look like a girl. About 3 years later, a strange surprise struck to the people of the town when they started observing a close relationship being developed between Miss Emily and a young American foreman of construction party whose name was Homer Barron. This Homer Barron was a very pleasant man, newly arrived in the town and quickly grown popular. This affair was unwelcome and was looked down upon by the ladies of the town, as this man was a day laborer and it was professed he liked men and it was known that he drank with the younger men in the Elks Club, and that he was not a marrying man. Then onwards, some of the ladies began to say it was a disgrace to the town and a bad example to the young people. She was poor Emily in even the eyes of the gentlemen of the town. But so far Miss Emily is concerned, the writer writes, she carried her head high enough even when we believed that she was fallen. It was as if she demanded more than ever the recognition of her dignity as the last Grierson. Ladies of the town forced the Baptist minister to visit and advise Miss Emily against this relationship. The minister did go, but would not divulge what happened there. He would not make it clear what happened in the house, and he refused to go back again. Apparently, he was rebuked by Miss Emily. It again shows that Miss Emily lived life according to her own will, and no authority was acceptable to her, administrative or religious whatsoever. When Miss Emily's relatives from Alabama came to her on the sly letter of the minister's wife, some development did happen. It was deduced that Miss Emily was married to Homer Barron when people learnt that Miss Emily had been to jewelers and ordered a men's toilet set in silver with the letters HB on each piece. She also ordered for men's outfit including night suit. Soon Homer Barron was gone out of the town. It was strangely surprising for the people once again when they knew that Miss Emily had brought the strongest poison, arsenic. People thought she would commit suicide being deserted by her lover. However, nothing of this sort happened. Homer Barron was gone, but only to return after some time. The cousins to Emily were gone by then. A neighbor saw Homer being admitted in Emily's house, and that was the last he was ever seen. After that, the front gate as well as a room upstairs was locked forever. It was the time when the neighbors complained to the corporation authorities against Emily's house for a very foul smell. It was emanating from her house. But the corporation authorities were submissive enough not to disturb the lady. It was doubted that some snake or rat was killed by the negro servant in Emily's yard. So they got lime sprinkled slyly over there in the night. About 6 months or so, Miss Emily was not seen at all. The author comments, I read from the story. When we next saw Miss Emily, she was grown fat. Her hair was turning grey. When she was about 40, she started giving lessons in china painting for some time, only year by year. She grew older till she was 74. The author writes, thus she passed from generation to generation, dear, inescapable, impervious, tranquil, and perverse. And so she died. After a long illness, she died. The writer describes in detail the unveiling of mystery and curiosity about Miss Emily and her house among the ladies and gentlemen of the town, Jefferson. The Negro servant disappeared as soon as people came to offer their condolence. After the funeral on the second day, the people had to break down the room upstairs, which was closed for last 40 years. The room seemed to be decorated for a bridal. The prevalent color in the room was rosy. The curtains were red, the lights were red, and the silver toilet things on the dressing. Upon the chair hung the suit, and beneath it the two mute shoes and socks. The man himself, that is Homer Barron, lay in the bed with a fleshless grin. The body was lying there in the attitude of embrace. The author writes, the long sleep, within brackets, death, that outlasts love, that conquers even the grimace of love, had cuckolded him, and undoubtedly Miss Emily had killed her lover with the poison arsenic for the breach of her trust. She apparently knew his relations with other younger men and could not tolerate that. Nevertheless, she loved him and could not part with him, even though she had to kill him to keep him with forever. In this manner, Homer Barron symbolically stands for the rose in the story, a rose with the thorns for Miss Emily. That is the story, a rose for Miss Emily.